And here we are.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Emily Miller. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, my goodness. Great.
Good.
It's already the middle of January has passed already.
2 more weeks
Has it?
in Tucson.
I mean, I know it's almost Tucson time. You and
Hmm.
I are going to get to spend a little bit of time together in Tucson.
I hope so. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
hopeful. It's going to be so fun. We just I feel like we were just doing like our year-end wrap up and stuff like
5 minutes
that. I
ago.
mean,
Five
you
minutes
know,
ago, we were doing that.
yeah, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes. So, um, yes, can everyone hear me? I'm not muted. I think I'm up and running.
I'm hearing
So,
you.
yeah, okay. Well, let's refresh. If you can't hear me, refresh.
I'm
Um,
monitoring YouTube on my end here. Hi, Dawn. I'm glad you're in the mood for bead embroidery.
yes, I was going to just put that
I
up right
think,
here.
I think it's a wonderful thing to do on cold, gray days, which I know we're all having, although the sun is trying to make a show today. Yesterday was pretty gray and grim. But we're in the lower 50s here with nothing to complain about. Sorry
Yeah.
if you guys are in the negatives or in the near zeros or anything. You're braver than I am.
No, I'll tell you. Deborah is saying that it is 13 degrees in Seneca, Pennsylvania. They've got sun, but it's chilly.
Yikes.
Diane's excited. This is bead embroidery.
Stephanie,
Stephanie,
I love your comment. I just had lunch yesterday with a really good friend and former student of mine, and she passed on a box of beads to me that were belonged to a friend of hers who's done with beading. And I have had a lovely time sitting on the floor by my big coffee table sorting. It's too hard to lean over, so I sit on the floor so the coffee table's here, and I open a
nice.
bag and peer through it and say, "Oh yeah, those I like, and those are gonna pass those on." It's been way fun.
Yeah, it's sorting is except when I have to sort, like bead gifts, I love. And then I'm like, "Oh, these beads from this project over there, let me just pour them in this baggie."
I
And
actually like it if it's a beater to beater kind of gift. Just give me a baggie because
right,
I know
that's
I
it.
will root through those. But if it's just sort of leftovers random, it's easier if it's in a packaging. It's bagged, of some
Yeah,
sort, or
detritus.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But if it's beater to beater, there's nothing like a bag of stuff, to play around with. And I highly recommend this to you if you have beady friends. Get a baggie and go to your local bead store online or your bead stash and just put a pinch of a bunch of things in there and you will make their day.
Yeah,
They will be super happy.
it
So
is so true. So true. Nancy Smith is saying hello to us from Pinole.
hi, Nancy Smith.
Hello, our friend. Well, let's chat. Emily, this is a piece that has been a long time in coming, right?
You are correct. It has a story. And um, I don't know if everybody knows this about me. Probably not a lot of people know this about me, but now you're all going to get to know. I often have things that stew around in my brain, marinate, or sometimes I get them out and try them, and they take on various, I call them iterations or versions, version one, version two, version three. Sometimes it takes a while to go through some versions. And I have that jar that Janice always laughs at me about that's full of little bits of seed bead stuff that didn't quite work for whatever reason. I didn't like the color. Stitch was not the right stitch. It was a start of a kit that I'm never going to finish. It just goes in that jar. And I think about them occasionally, but they're mostly just there to hold the jar down on the table. But anyway, I have all my iterations with me today, and even the one that was kind of the funny inspiration for this. That's, gosh, I've probably had it in my possession for, God, I want to see 12 or 15 years. So it's taken a long time. I was having email conversation with Helen Blenner Hessett. If I'm going to say your name wrong, I'm going to really blow it. Who lives in Texas. Yesterday, we were talking about art and inspiration and beadwork, and it's really, for me, the things that go through my head take a while sometimes to mature, ferment. I don't know. We can call it a bunch of things, but it's really not. It's not uncommon for me at all to have something that I'm thinking about, researching, exploring, and it takes me 10 or 15 years to get circle around the long plane, land that plane on that item.
Land that plane.
So it's really not unusual. So I keep notebooks, and I'm a big notebook person, as is Kate. And so we like a notebook where you can paste some pictures or draw a sketch. And sometimes the sketch doesn't really have anything to do with how it's going to come out in the end. And so I think that's sort of the interesting thing, is sometimes the process is very fun to play around with. So that's what I'm going to show you that today, actually.
Oh, so shall I add it?
Sure.
Let's get this.
If you want, if you're ready to hang out
Yeah,
and get
let
this
me.
going, let's get this
Yeah,
party started, huh?
let me just say before we get Emily rolling, I'm going to cover your beautiful face for just 1 second and say, don't forget to find us on all the socials, do all the things, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit that subscribe right over on the YouTube if you're watching it live or on replay. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up, and you don't want to miss a broadcast. If you have any questions, shoot us an email over at info@beadshop.com. And we'd love to see you over in our Facebook group, the Bead Table. One quick thing I heard from Drea, Emily,
Mm.
that Allie has something up her sleeve
Ooh.
for us that's old style, lookbook style, that I'm super excited about. So I just wanted to allude to that. Drea alluded it to me yesterday, and I'm like, that Allie Mori. So
I
stay tuned.
can't wait to see what that
I
is.
know I can't
Allie
either
Murray,
because
Allie Murray is sort of a sleeper. For me, she's creating, and I have no idea that that's happening. I don't hear anything. I don't see any previews, and then suddenly this thing just pops onto the world, and it's
pops up. I know.
holy Toledo.
I
It's good
know it.
stuff. And I know she also lives kind of in the country where there are less distractions, and sometimes the weather's bad, so you're stuck inside with needing to keep your hands busy. But she does some really, really awesome things, and I can't wait to see. I mean, I'm fascinated. So.
Yeah, it is. It is. I am super, super excited. So that's coming. Um,
And
oh, I love it. Here, Melanie is saying, oh, go ahead, Em.
I was going to say, Helen and I were having this conversation, and I really kind of mean to take it over to the bead table, to talk a little bit about it, because it was a very interesting conversation about making jewelry for sale, and that's kind of been my focus for the last few years. But kind of as how you work as an artist, and how I deal with it and how I feel about it. And I've also had some experiences both teaching and doing things for pay in a different way, and some production jewelry making. And so I do think it's an interesting kind of concept to talk about, and there's a lot of different ways people make it work. Um, but I think we should take it, Helen. I think we should take this conversation over to the bead table, because I think people would be interested in what we were talking about. So
I think so, definitely. And we've always talked about maybe we should do just like a bead table only broadcast, or I don't know, something. I don't want to feel exclusive, but might be
well,
fun
that's why I
to.
thought it was kind of, it's kind of interesting to have these ongoing conversations that the bead table can really support. And
Yeah.
I like that. I because it is a discussion, and I always feel like I was like ready to call Helen yesterday, because I was like, I can't put this all into writing exactly. I feel like I need to tell it to you face to face. We need a FaceTime or something,
Right,
because
right.
the conversation there's a delay, there's this
Yeah,
stiltedness to it. But the bead table is better because more people are conversing in that
in
conversation.
that space.
So
Yeah.
it's happening more organically, but also just more things come into the conversation that we can all think about and then respond to. So I
Hmm.
do think it needs to go over to the bead table.
And you know what? Would be kind of fun if we do a broadcast in the bead table. You actually can bring people on the broadcast.
Oh, I think we should do that then.
You
Yeah.
know, it'd be kind of
Yeah.
fun because,
Yeah.
we can bring people on and off. You can invite them in. talk about their question. Might be kind of fun. We have a little
Yeah.
bead table,
I
the bead
I
table
just
round table.
one of
That'd
the
be
things that
good
occurred
times.
to me when we were having this conversation was that Kate and Janice and I and Drea too. Drea worked in a bead store, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I sort of feel like we hunger a little bit for that conversation that happens over the counter,
Right. The over the counter.
and
Yep.
we miss people coming in with their question, and it's not that they're like inexperienced and so this is like a newbie question and we're over that, we've already experienced that, but it's always nice to hear a question from another perspective, and so I'm always super interested in hearing what people have to say. So
Definitely. And it's kind of fun to do it, face to face or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
So
quote
let's
unquote.
think about that post Tucson.
Yeah, sorry, there's
And
some barking in the distance.
people are picking up what we're putting down too. People are
Good.
ready for
Oh, good,
that. All
good,
right. Well, Em, I'm going to add your demo table
good.
here. Shall I solo it for you?
Yeah, sure, if you like. It's a little
And
easier
then
to see what's going on
I'm
because
going to,
I look up to the big screen to kind of see what's
yeah,
happening.
I'm going to
So
get rid of this banner and I'm going to get rid of your name
I
there.
wanted to show you my temperature project from last year that was
Love.
a resounding failure. But this is all brick stitch, and brick stitch is coming up in a minute for a project. But I'm actually going to make this into a bead,
I love it.
right? I'm going to roll it around and close up the zigzag seam, right? We'll lock right in there. And I'm going to close that up, make it a bead, put it on a chain. That's my 2023 temperature project.
That's, you know
So if
what?
you didn't get your temperature project done, you're not alone. Don't worry.
I love it.
I can
Well,
still make something out of it.
I'm almost Christina's saying you had good intentions, Emily. That's
Oh, I
awesome.
always have good intentions.
Good intentions.
Like
And I'm working on the video. I Some people have sent other uh finished and unfinished. So the updated video should be up sometime later this week. So
awesome. Awesome.
all
Well,
right. Well, I'm super excited to talk
cool.
about this bead embroidery, Em. So
Yeah.
you're all you.
You know, I really love bead embroidery, and I got turned on to it by an artist named Robin Atkins, who lives up in Washington State and does some really great work. And she has some really awesome books, and I really enjoyed hanging out with her. And it is a fun thing to do. But even before I met Robin Atkins, I was out shopping with my mom, as one does when your mom's with you. And we happened upon this little store that was selling international crafts of some kind. And I know it was in Oakland, might have been down at Jack London Square area. I don't even remember the name of the store, but they had this whole rack of these little tiny hearts. And I fell in love with them. And I know I bought several, and I think I gave some away, but this is the one that I kept for me. And it's some kind of a fabric, and it's got a little bit of padding inside, a tiny little bit of beadwork around the edges, and a very primitive necklace cord on it. But this has kind of been in my brain for years. And oh my goodness, the sun is shining in on my table. I hope that's okay, glare wise. But the charmingness of this little heart has really been in kind of in my life for a long time, and I have a great memory of shopping for that little item. And
Oh, I love that. And the sun looks fine, Em.
okay, good. So fast forward a bunch of years, and we made this brick stick heart on your sleeve for Beadshop some years back. This was my first projects, I think, for Beadshop. This is the blue one, and there's a red one. And I really enjoyed making this project so much. This is not bead embroidery, but it kind of goes along with the heart idea. And you can see that it has some similarity to the shape here on this guy. Also, while I was thinking about this project, I did some other ones in some leftover fabric scraps, obviously some red, because that was that first inspiration piece. And I think Janice sent me a little baggie full of birds left over from her bird project, her bird necklace project, which I just absolutely love. And I kind of love a little button because it allows you to do a little kind of thread embellishment. And I played around a little bit with cords. I didn't know where this was going exactly, so this is a little crocheted This is Chinese knotting cord. It's probably 0.5, somewhere along the line that I acquired in a neon ombre rainbow, which is kind of loud, but it kind of went with the style for me. And then I played around with that same Chinese knotting cord, also just tying knots every so often to, again, take a cord that isn't very exciting, but to add a little detail to it and a little fun to it. And this is just done as a project for me that I didn't know where it was going, but I had this weird felt or weird flannel that when I bought this at Joann's, there wasn't very much left on the bolt, and I think I bought the whole piece. And the woman who was cutting the fabric looked at me and she goes, "What are you going to make out of that?" Because it's pretty loud and kind of obnoxious pattern, very jungle river themed. And I said, "It's going to be a quilt back." And she said, "Oh, thank God." And I think she thought I was going to make a top out of it or something and wear it because it was really obnoxious. So it was really has kind of a funny memory for me. But I kind of liked this flannel. It was kind of fun. And so it was these were iterations that kind of led me on my way to kind of what we're going to do today. And one of the things that I have loved about bead embroidery and I think, Helen, this is a little note for you too. This is something that interests me a lot, and it kind of relates to doing things on the loom, is making something that's a mosaic or a fully covered panel with beads on fabric or on Ultra Suede. And that has been a focus for me for a long time. And one of the things that, as I kind of looked back at my original inspiration, and I looked at a little bit of Native beadwork, older Native American beadwork, is that the fabric that was underneath often showed through. And certainly this was Native American beadwork that came from the big woods, so the upper Midwest area of the United States. Some of them Native American from there was on wool, and the wool rots away eventually, and you're left with the beadwork on kind of a plain backing. And so this is kind of the next step for me with bead embroidery, is doing something a little more figural. I did do some eyes and I did do some hands, and not covering all of the fabric with the beadwork. If you want to cover all the fabric with the beadwork, please do. Do you for sure. You do you on this one. You don't need to have me telling you exactly how you want to do this, but kind of this was the exploration of this new piece. So kind of along with this whole setup came my idea of intention setting. And golly, it's a new year. So that also kind of dovetails right into that as well. Is inside each of these little pieces that I've made, I tucked a little intention. And I wrote it on a piece of paper and I folded it up and I slid it in just before I finished the border so that it's inside and you can see it, only I know what it says. And it's my little way of kind of keeping a little, I don't know, a little thought in mind. I think it's interesting to look at the written word, and I think writing things down for me also gives me a little bit of maybe it's a little bit of someone's paying attention and I need to fulfill this intention, and I need to a little bit of accountability is what we're saying. Just like when you have a friend that you go to the gym with or you work out with, it's harder to not go with someone else than it is to not go by yourself. It's easy to say, "I'm too tired today," or "My back hurts,"
So
whatever.
true. And I love the intentions. I just think that people are just saying that it's so thoughtful. I think that's really resonating.
Oh, good. I'm glad. And this can be an intention of I resolve to put the shopping cart back in the cart corral every time I go to the grocery store. Or it can be an intention of I will do better sharing the load at work. Or it can be whatever intention you want. Or it can be something that you want to say, I will, whatever you want it to be. I aspire to do better at something. So I do kind of like these ideas.
It's so
Um,
great.
Fun. Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, that's kind of my kickoff to this and kind of where I came from for designing this. So I did do you a little brief handout, but I want to not to not to duplicate work we've already done, there's 2 other broadcasts about bead embroidery that cover all the stitches. So really what I want to focus on today is showing you things that maybe you haven't seen before, and how I'm going to show you how to do this really cool new cord that I have been playing around with. And it's a cord that you can use any material to work with, but the waxed linen is especially nice. You know, Janice and I were doing some researching during one of our meetings, and she said, "Where did that big cord come from?" And I said, "Oh my God, I can make that. I know how to do that." So
I
this,
love it so much.
it's really pretty, isn't it? And I, you know, it's really a natural with the waxed linen, because the waxed linen's a little sticky and it kind of gives it a little holdingness to it. But you can use anything. Scrap. Seen this done with scrap fabric to make twine that you can tie up a package with, or you know, do whatever with. I've seen people doing it with indigo dyed thread or
Hmm.
fibers, kind of anything. But there's 2 previous bead embroidery pieces that we did, and the dates on these guys are 3/28/18 and 11/11/20. So March 28th, 2018, November 11th, Veterans Day, in 2020.
Tell me that one more time. I'm going to put it up. So the first broadcast was what? 3 what?
3/28 of 2018,
Okay, gosh, that's a while back.
right? And
And
11/11 of 2020.
those are embroidery broadcasts to
They
watch,
are, and they have a ton. They have all of the stitches are already there, and they're fun to watch. I think you should go back and look at those a little bit, because they're quite fun. And bead embroidery isn't difficult. There's a few things that I think make it a little easier. And you can use any fabric that you want. Ultra Suede is kind of a natural for this, because um, it's not a woven fabric. It's kind of a bonded fabric. So it's really easy to stitch through, and it's super durable. I mean, you'd have a hard time. I don't know if you could really tear this or not, but it
right?
is a really nice leather look without the pain and hardness of real leather. And we carry the little pin backs. This one was a pendant, but if you want to do the little pin back on the back, you can certainly do this. And on this one, we're not going to use any stinky glue. So I usually use E6000 to glue the backing on, and that would help hold the pin in place. But we're not going to use any stinky glue on this one, which is also kind of a relief, because E6000 for me is
Yeah, it's a little whiffy.
yeah, it's almost too stinky.
Yeah.
So in your handout, I made a few different template shapes. Now, you don't have to follow any of these template shapes. You can pick your own. Where did I get these template shapes from, you ask? Well, I went over to my PMC workstation and I pulled out a bunch of cookie cutters. So cookie cutters are just one way to get some template shapes. But you can make a heart by folding a piece of paper in half and cutting it out. I think we all know how to do that from grade school. But I thought I would work on a very small heart this time, just to kind of show you how I do it. There's a trick to transferring templates to something that you work on. And let me show you how I would do that. I kind of enjoyed this sort of what we might call a temple shape.
Temple, I
But this
love that one, yeah.
temple one. Okay, we'll do this one.
Yeah,
So if
I
you
love
take
it.
a pencil, and actually I'm going to move my little workboard out of the way here, because I want a hard surface under me. Just a second. Hold that thought. Let me
I
just
mean, I like all of them. I love, but that little temple, I don't know, it's
it's appealing for you.
very appealing. Yeah.
So having some kind of a hard surface, if you take a pencil and just trace around, and I'm going to make kind of a heavy, sorry if I'm jiggling my table and there go my camera. I'm going to make kind of a heavy line around it, right? This lighter Ultra Suede, this technique will work really well. If you're going to do a darker Ultra Suede, you might cut this out and then around it. And of course, you can print it a bunch of times if you want. You could even shrink it or enlarge it if you wanted a bigger or smaller. You know, I've thought of these as pendants, so it's kind of your choice. But I'm going to trace around it fairly heavily. And I'm going to get my Ultra Suede out. And I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to double check I have a little bit of room. I do. And I'm just going to kind of scuff over it again with my pencil. This is one of those art school tricks for transferring a shape.
Oh, that's a great trick. You know, you could do it also if it was dark, you could use a light chalk pencil or something.
Sure, sure, or a pastel,
Yeah,
like
pastel.
pastel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Emily Miller, get out of town.
Isn't that fun?
Out. Out of town
Doesn't
right
that
now.
transfer nicely? I mean, it's so quick and easy. I mean, it's almost like magic, right?
My head
Um,
just exploded.
oh my God, it did not, Kate. You
Oh,
know, if you
it
happen to
did.
go to the art supply store, I love these Blackwing pencils. They're hard to find in the very soft ones, but you can order them online. But pick out a soft pencil, right? And I would also grab a couple of erasers. So this is called a kneaded, like kneading dough, KN. And this can actually be one that will help you clean up the edges a little bit. If you have a little bit of a heavy line, it'll actually help a little bit on the Ultra Suede, kind of tidy that up if you feel like you need a little corrector, right? Um,
Right.
but yeah, transferring them, I think like that is just, that transfer is just, could not be any easier, right?
And I have a Blackwing pencil sitting right. Blackwing are the only pencils I get. People are asking, Mary, the pencil is called Blackwing. They
I'll
have
put mine down
four.
in here.
Yeah,
I
they
like
have.
the Talisman the best, but I have a couple of different ones, and
Mhm.
they're a really nice old school pencil. They're made in California, actually, nowadays, which is kind of fun, also. So
Just
I need a piece of Ultra Suede that's slightly bigger than my, and I may have miscut this just a little bit, slightly bigger than my work. Let's see if this is going to fit on the back. Oh yeah, this should be fine. And this depends on, is this going to be the outline for my beadwork, or is it going to be the outline for my whole piece, right? So here's one that I did with a hand in it, and I used that temple shape to be inside the pendant itself. This could be the outline, like this guy, right? So we could go either way here. And it's entirely up to you. If you don't have a shape that you like, go online, Google shapes. You can look at most of your graphic design software. If you use a Mac, Pages has a great shapes project, or great shapes uh, uh, feature. So you can get a bunch of different shapes printed on a piece of paper and shrink them and enlarge them and play around with them. But it's nice to have that ability to kind of transfer onto the Ultra Suede fairly easily, right? I think that's a fun magic trick you can do with kids too. You can show them how to transfer shapes onto things. So, all right, so that's my shape transfer. Now I'm going to do a shape here with this little heart. Now for something completely different, right? So this is just a small cookie cutter. When you go to your craft store, like Michael's, Joann's, those guys, look in not only the polymer clay area, but also look in the cookware area, because they have cookie cutters for cutting marzipan and for cutting, I forget what the other kind of fondant bakery stuff. And so look in that area too, because they have cookie cutters of every different shape, size, and dimension, and seasonal. And I'm usually looking for the slightly smaller ones. So the fondant ones usually do a little bit better for me. If you look online, you might want to look for clay cutters. So cutters that are meant for doing earthenware clay, right? So ceramics.
And
Those are,
Emily, the Japanese stores, they have them for
oh
cutting
yeah. Oh
vegetables
yeah.
and shapes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and here, like this little flower one is kind of fun because most cookie cutters are super symmetrical. And this one is definitely not symmetrical. You know,
So
um,
cute.
I don't consider myself a very skilled illustrator. I like to play around with things, but I will often look at something online and then kind of make my own version of it. That's what I did to get a magic eye. And when I did my hand, I did a very kind of primitive. Let me see if I can show you my original one. Sometimes I have kept them, but I think I may have done a very primitive hand. Nope, it looks like that's gone. A very primitive hand to begin with, and then kind of worked on refining it. But this will transfer the exact same way, right? And we can make little adjustments. We can go a little wider here, a little narrower, whatever we want. But that transfer trick, I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Kate. I
Oh
would have
my
thought
God, mind. I am gonna. I've. I. No words. That's. I'm so excited.
oh, I'm so glad you liked it because
Oh my God.
it's my job to show you, you
You brought the thunder.
know. So in this case, I think that I'm going to bead around the edge and not and fill the interior. So I'm going to cut my Ultra Suede, and I would say generally cutting with about a scant half inch would be a good way to go. But I know that this is going to be on the outside. I'm going to be on the outside edge, so I want that whole shape and kind of like my original inspiration piece. So I'm going to cut everything fairly close. I don't really need this extra fabric, and this just gives me a little less to get tangled and caught up in and that kind of stuff.
And
So
Emily, let me just make a point about the scissors you're using. Since
sure.
you're cutting that Ultra Suede, you're using some nice, really sharp embroidery scissors. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I think these are Italian. I don't know. They're not gingers, but they're just an embroidery scissor,
Yeah.
a little something that you use for, cutting fabric. If you ever watch the sales at Joann's, you can get a really nice pair of ginger sewing scissors without very much cost, and I always used to ask for that for Christmas as tools. So
Yeah.
I always think having a nice tool now and again is really worthwhile. So what I like to do with any kind of fabric that I'm using is use a piece of paper behind it to give it a little bit of stiffness. This is a trick from um, Robin Atkins. Also, she would use a piece of paper behind her. So you can use cardstock if you want a lot of stiffness. You can just use regular paper. If you actually, you know what? I think this is a template. I think it's that piece right there. So I think I'll cut myself a fresh piece of paper. Oh, I found my original hand. Here it is. It was buried. So that was my original hand that I drew as I was kind of thinking about how this was going to work. And I'm just going to pull off a piece of paper here. One thing about sticky notes, which I got to tell you, I like a lot. The sticky side, if I put my fabric against it, it does kind of help hold things in place for you for just while you're starting your job, your work. And it doesn't have to be the fanciest of sticky note. It can be any kind of sticky note.
Again, get out of town.
Isn't that handy? Kind of holds things together while you're working for a little bit. So use what you got, right? I mean, it could be a neon. It doesn't really matter. I do think if I was using a dark fabric, I would want to use a dark sticky note, or I would cut it just slightly inside, but try and stitch through it. I use a
So
sharp needle.
it's just sorry. So it's just that um the top portion of that sticky note, it's just attaching. So that's the sticky portion right there.
Yeah.
Emily, that's number two. I have to go lie down.
It's fun, isn't it? When you kind of you go, oh, why don't I just use that little sticky bit? It'll be perfect, you know?
Yes. And Deborah is asking, do we sell the Ultra Suede? We do.
We
We
do.
have
And
a
a million,
ton,
1 million
a
colors.
million colors. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very fun. So,
Okay, continue on. Sorry, I have
okay,
to rest
that-
from that one.
I'm going to use a thread color. I'm going to use some KO. I do tend to like this flatter filament style thread, which is KO is like too. It's got a little bit of a twist to it, but it's not as heavily plied as some seed bead weaving threads. I think that it's a little overkill to use Fireline. You can if that's what you've got, but I think it's a little overkill. This is the kind of thread that I would use for this particular project. And I pick a thread that kind of matches with my background. I want the thread to disappear if it shows at all. If you're using very dark threads on very light fabric, you might want to do a little experiment. Using black beads or white beads on a black fabric, I would have to do a little trial. I would stitch a couple beads down and kind of see what I thought of the color together. I might go with black beads or black thread with white beads and a black background, but I might go with white thread. It just depends what your plan is. And it's okay to do a little, a template, a sample. You know, you have little scraps of Ultra Suede floating around now, so you can use those as you like. Again,
Oh,
we're gonna
sorry.
do,
Quick question from
sure.
Terry about the Ultra Suede. Does it have any stretch or give? Um,
You
it
know,
doesn't really. Maybe just slightly, but not much.
it does in one direction, a little bit, but it's not very much. I don't think that this is even a woven fabric. I think it's like felt
Yeah,
kind of
it's a
spun.
conglomerate. Yeah.
It doesn't have no threads come off on the edge, you know, so you don't have to worry about things fraying. So that's all good, you know. So I'm gonna grab a piece of thread, and you know, thread length is somewhat of a personal choice. It's a personal decision. I tend to work shorter than longer, and I didn't do a very good job cutting that thread. I'm gonna hold that thought. I cut it really on an angle, and I can see it. In my poor eyes, I can still see it. Um, so I'm gonna thread my needle. I'm gonna use a sharps needle. This is a place where I prefer a sharps. It's a little stiffer to push through the fabric. It's just a little easier to work with than a long needle. But again, if you want May, I would probably do a 10 because it's a little stiffer. And this is a 10 sharps as well. So we can also give our thread a little stretch, a little pull, which will help take some of the curlies out of it, which keeps it from getting tangled. I don't usually use beeswax because beeswax potentially could stain your fabric a little bit, especially on these lighter colors. So I'm going to not use beeswax this time. I'm going to do a knot on the end of this thread. I'm going to do it by taking the end of the thread and laying it towards the eye of the needle. So the E in the end to the E in the eye, right? And I'm just going to hold it in place, and I'm going to wind my thread a few times around the needle, pinch that between my thumb and forefinger, pull it through, and that will make a stopper knot here at the end. Okay? I do that with all the bead embroidery stuff that I've done. So
Someone's an
now,
old school, old school. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. You know,
It's an old school technique.
I don't think that's how my mom did it, but she might have. I just remember sewing at my mom's side, and um, she made it seem very effortless, and I never had that experience. It took me a long time to get to that experience.
Yeah, that's just how Gran would do it. That is a
You
great
know,
technique.
I think the last project I did, I had like 12 colors of beads, and this time I have 4. So, you know, it just kind of goes to show that you can do a lot with 4 colors, and you can do a lot with 12. So you choose what you want to play with. This obviously has a Valentine's idea in mind. You know, if you were going to make a heart for someone and sew a little intention into it, that would be a very nice thing. But you could use any colors that you really adore. Really, anything that you like. It's your choice. I particularly loved using these Delica spacer beads. I think that's what we call them. This is SPR 3-190. No surprise there, because that's nickel plated. And I love the nickel plated beads so much. It's really
Same
one of my
thing.
favorite colors.
Yep.
And on these 2 pieces, I've used them in similar spots as a border going around the outside. And I used them as a border around the eye. And I used them in the pupil of the eye by stitching them down in 3 spots. So you can stitch down um, over the edge of the circle without a bead on top to get another effect from that, right? So you may do you, of course. So I think on this particular heart, one of my thoughts was that I really hadn't covered one completely like I have done in my other bead embroidery pieces. So I think that I'm going to do this one, and I'll finish it and show it to you later, because I have a hard time with pieces that I've started that are my work, not finishing them. So I think I'm going to bead this whole surface with this one stitch. And this particular stitch I use in a lot of different iterations. It's called stop stitch. And basically, it's a super short fringe, right? It's one bead. My thread's coming up from below. It's one bead, another bead. Skip that last bead and go back through the first one. So it's one of the easiest of stitches that I might do. And I'm just putting a moment here. Do I want to do this in rows, or do I want to just sort of scatter it and fill? I kind of think I just want to scatter it. I don't really want to do it in rows. So I'm going to start that. And with with bead embroidery, you're always going to have your needle coming from the back. When you finish your stitch, that really is the end of the stitch. Do I want to use the red or the pink? I think I'm going to use the red. So this is the frosted opaque glazed rainbow dark red. That guy over here, and you can really, I don't know, in the sunlight, I can really pick up the rainbow. So it's got a
So
little bit of
pretty.
blue and gold in it, and it's slightly matted, which I think is a nice contrast with, in fact, all these beads are matte, but it's a nice contrast, especially against that one. You know, the tubes, when I get them from Beadshop, they don't have the color name on them. So I've been pulling the labels off the bag and putting them on the tube because I really like to know the name. This guy is the matte opaque light rose. And this is another rainbow one. This is the frosted opaque glazed rainbow ivory. This guy right here. This one actually made an appearance in, actually maybe both of these might have, in the last one we did, the super spiral, because
It's such a nice one.
I
And
like.
while you're doing that, Christine Whitney has a quick question about
Sure.
thoughts on working with a hoop for larger pieces.
You know, you could certainly work with a hoop if that makes you feel more comfortable. Um, if you're using woven fabric, so like a broadcloth or quilting cotton or denim or something, you want to make sure you don't pull it too tight. I feel like it
Mhm.
will thicker later, and I would do a little experiment. Start small, obviously, a sampling of something. Take that fabric, back it with some paper. So you could try a cardstock or a heavier paper, and you can baste the fabric down to the cardstock if you want around the edges, so it holds it in place. And then do a few stitches and see how it feels in your hand. Feel how comfortable it is to be able to move it around, and then go ahead and do one on an embroidery hoop and see what happens. Um, I just sense that the embroidery hoop is going to give you the ability to stretch your fabric more than you want to.
One of
Um,
the things that I've done in the past, is I hoop whatever the backing fabric is, like whatever.
yeah,
Sometimes I use Ada cloth or whatever, and
right.
then I stitch like my piece of Ultra Suede or whatever
Oh,
um, down, just to like tack it the four corners down.
right.
So it's
I mean,
it's still small. That's not hooped, but the backing is. Does
yeah,
that make sense?
it gives you something to hang on to, and
Yes.
I would encourage you to try the paper backing if you've never done it before. The paper backing is going to stay there; it's not coming out.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to try the paper backing if you've never tried it before. So here's a stop stitch, 2 beads on my thread. I could probably do a couple more if I wanted to have some fringiness coming up from this, some dimension. But typically I do it with just a couple beads. I'm going to turn around and I'm skipping that last bead and I'm going to go back through the fabric pretty close to, but not probably in exactly the same spot where I was working before. And pull that up. Um, Gosh, I have a bigger bead embroidery project that I should show you sometime, but I don't have it out on my wall at the moment. I'm going to pop up again. Now, I would like to be sort of close here so that my pieces, my stop stitches, sit side by side. And we can do a little bit of adjusting of space here when we get to that point, but generally I want to have them lay side by side but not overlap. And so to get a little adjustability, I can actually slide that along with my needle to just about the spot where I want it to be, punch my needle through and pull it through. So this is another advantage of a shorter thread, is that I don't have very far to pull and it doesn't get tangled very easily, right? So the stop stitches, an outlining stitch. We could also use couching, and we could use backstitch for this. Any of those stitches would work. I do use couching for smaller distances, backstitch for longer, straighter lines. And both of those stitches, like shown here, these outlining stitches, I couched those, but I also ran my needle back through all of them. And on the fingertips, that was very fussy. I went in and did a couple of extra little couches right over the thread. So couching is the thread laying on the beads laying on top of the material. Excuse me.
Bless you.
With another stitch coming up and catching in between each thread. Backstitch is I'm going to lay about 4 beads on the thread, going to come up again and go through the last 2, kind of nail them down that way. You can do couching, you can do backstitch, whichever feels more comfortable for you. But I do tend to go through them after the fact and run a thread through them again, just to kind of even them up a little bit and make them kind of look a little smoother to my eye. That's always what I'm kind of looking for.
So will you hold what you're stitching on? Would up a little, or put your camera down just a little?
Hold on, let me get the bead on here. You think I'll move my camera down just a little bit?
Yeah, no problem. And then we'll talk a little bit. Are you going to talk about couching in a little bit as well?
You know, I can do a little bit if you'd like, but it is, again, on these handouts that we've already kind of covered.
Okay.
So, you know,
gotcha.
I'm more interested in this particular little project and kind of you moving along
so
on them.
Go to those other techniques in Emily's projects, or in Emily's handouts. And but couching is just another way of laying beads down in a line.
Right. So I'm going to stop stitch and or couch and or fill in this whole project. I'm not going to obviously do it in front of you today, but I will finish this project up. Is the sunshine bothering anybody, or is this distracting?
No, people are kind of liking it. It's okay. Someone said it actually looked very nice.
Okay. I mean, I like it, but I can close that.
No, it's translating okay.
A little bit if it need be, right?
No, it's translating.
So, I'm going to fill this whole thing in. You know, I might fill it in sort of like I did with this one, where this pear shape, to really accent that shape in the middle, I might just fill this in and make it be like a fingerprint. Right? Lines, swirls, and whorls going around to fill it all in on the inside. And I sort of like the idea of doing the whole thing in stop stitch. So I'm heading that direction as I'm designing along on this particular one, right?
Now, the thing that I think is so cool about this, is this is such a tiny little talisman that these are great practice pieces. It's not
definitely.
You know, you're not investing like hours and hours of time. This is just a small little piece to start to get your feet wet, you know?
Yep, absolutely. And you can be thinking, if you like, about the intention that you plan to put in here while you're doing this. And if you like, you can start thinking about it, or you can wait until you're ready to attach the sides to one another and do the Pico edging or a whip stitch edging to make your decision about that intention that you want to put in here. And it's really it's kind of a nice little project, you know.
And can you go a little more towards the center? Yeah, there you go. And would you do that stop stitch just a little slower?
Sure.
One more time so we can cement it in our brains.
So here's the 2 beads that I put on. Yeah. And I'm going to skip this last one. Think of this as very short fringe from an earring, right? Or process. I'm going to put my needle through the last, that first bead that went on, that spacer, and pull it through. I like stop stitch, actually. I think it's very nice for outlining, and it gives a little bit of texture. So that is always kind of, I think, welcome with bead embroidery.
No, agreed.
Right.
And just a time check. We've got about 30 minutes left. I don't know how long the.
I'm gonna just. I could sit here and bead with you guys all day.
I know.
Right.
Me too. You.
Right. How cute. It's coming along. This is going to be a really cute one, and this is super close in size to my original inspiration, you know? So good thought. Okay. When I get all done with all of my beading, I'm going to end with my needle on the back side, right? There's lots of stitch work to work
Mhm.
under. And I'm just going to tie a couple of knots. So this is as if you were doing hand sewing. You would slide your needle under a thread. And here, let's do it. Go back to that side. And if you have to change threads, I do believe that it's a good idea to change threads in bead embroidery occasionally. So using a shorter thread is nice because it forces you to do that, but it also kind of secures the beadwork in parts. You know, if you were to make this into a pin or a patch that you were going to sew onto something, it might take some, rubbing and abuse. So I think it would be great to secure everything really nicely. I'm just going to slip my needle underneath a stitch, pull it down. This is another trick that I was hard one in my sewing career. Make that loop fairly small, right? Then put the needle through. Then pull it up tight. If you have a giant loop there, it's much easier to get tangled. And if the thread has built in now any little twists from your handling it, this is a way to not have a tangle. Okay. And then just trim off your extra. And I would continue on. But I think I'm going to do the whole thing in stop stitch, like a
I
little
think that would be really cute.
swirly whirly situation, like that.
Will you show it a little bit closer to the camera, Em? Just a touch so we can see. So what you've used there is, can you see how Emily's used the little Miyuki spacers as the bottom, and then the 11-aught? That's an 11-aught at the top, Emily,
It
right?
is. You could do 15s on these if you wanted to get super detail
Mm-hmm.
oriented on this. You could definitely do 15s. Charlotte's look amazing in bead embroidery because again, that one little crisp facet is just yeah, it's just perfect. It leaves you a little bit speechless, right?
Yeah,
Um,
so
it's,
nice.
it's just perfect. So,
And
so
then I also put up, Emily, the link to our bead embroidery page. You've done so much bead embroidery. I did a
yeah,
little short one too. So they're all there. I just showed it. Let me put it back up. So those of you who have a little bit of confusion about terms and stuff that we don't really have time to go over in today's broadcast because Emily's going to do some other stuff, go to beadshop.com, the bead embroidery section. You will fall down a rabbit hole there.
good fun.
All right.
All right.
So,
So, when I finish with this, I have choices, a couple choices to make, right? When I've done all the beading I want to do I want to leave it in a square? So I have a frame and a something. Do I want to have it be more of a shape? It's choice. And at some point, you're going to have to make that choice. When I'm ready to finish, I'm going to trim this quite closely. And I might trim it kind of like this. So we're talking about maybe a 1/4 inch of leftover. And that would be where I would do the Pico edging. So that Pico edging gives you this kind of lovely finished edge. And it's pretty easy to do. And this is another place where thread color is going to show just a tiny bit, but you can pull this up quite snug, and that helps hide that thread color a little bit. And you can go all the way around. And I started both of these pieces by in the middle at the top. And I worked my way all the way around. And when I got to just about the second cord, I stuffed my intention in there. Okay. So whenever you've gotten some closure on this border or this outline, you can put your intention in the back. And you can kind of see my intention is rolled up right here, right? Right there. But I made lovely handmade cords and I sewed them to the backing piece and then did all of that closing. But the handmade cord is so much fun to make, and I cannot wait to show you how to do this. I used our burgundy. Oh gosh, you're gonna have to correct. Somebody's gonna have to correct me on the color because did I put the bag away? Wait, here it is. Here it is. I used the Irish linen 4-ply in maroon. I bought one cake of that, or whatever we're calling it these days.
Nest.
Nest. I knew it had a name. And I made cord that was going to be long enough to go over my head. So, your Valentine may or may not want to wear this. They may want to hang it on a mirror or hang it in their car or whatever. But I started with 4 cords, about 1.25 yards each. And we're going to use these 4 cords in pairs of 2. So they're going to be separated. So this is my whole long cord, right? And this is way too long to show you on the screen. So I have a little magic oven situation set up here. A little short sample of cord. And I just want to clear my deck here a little bit, move this needle out the way. And I've got some cord here, similarly organized, 4 cords. So Irish linen is it's really awesome stuff. It's so much fun to work with because it's got a little bit of tackiness, a little bit sticky to it. And you can separate it like you would embroidery floss. You can actually break these 4-ply cords down into smaller cords. But I'm going the opposite direction. So I tied them all into a knot together. And let me show you how cool this is to make, because when I saw someone do this, I was like, wait, what? That works. I have always made cord by twisting it and then letting it twist back on itself. And Kate does the same thing when she's making yarn, spinning yarn. You're spinning it and twisting it, and it's folding back on itself a little bit so it stays plied together. And this is how to do it kind of by hand. And I probably wouldn't do, 10 feet of this, but for my necklace piece that I might want to do for this one, I think it's a fun idea. So what I did was I take the 2 groups of thread, right? 2 pairs. Now we're just going to put them together. And I situate them so that they're an upper and a lower. And I give this about 3 twists. This upper one, 1, 2, 3. And then I move it over the front to the lower side. And I do the same thing now with the upper. 1, 2, 3. Switch. Look how cool this comes out. I mean, come
Oh,
on.
so you're twisting the top and the bottom and then twisting them together.
Yep. And I don't really have to hang on to that bottom one. I'm just holding it because it's easier to do the top.
Emily, that's really cool.
I did not develop this. I saw it multiple times, and it just took me, I don't know, several years. The first time I saw this, it was somebody who was making it with scraps of fabric that she cut into narrow strips. Kate, remember when we were talking about a fabric stripper?
Yes.
That's when I first saw this.
Oh, how funny.
It's just been a long time coming, right?
Yeah.
And with the Ultra Suede, it's kind of cool, or with the the wax linen, it's kind of cool because it's a little sticky, right?
Right,
So
it has that bite to it. Yeah.
right, nicely, but it works with anything. I've done it with I don't know what I did with that piece. I did it with some I have some recycled silk yarn that's like a cut from a sari.
Oh, the sari yarn. Yeah, that would be
I used it
cool.
with that. Oh my god, it came out really good.
Someone's asking here, if Bess is asking, could we use 0.5 millimeter leather? I'm sure you could. You could
Sure.
use Chinese knotting cord.
Sure.
But that's great. So it's 4 plies, twist the top, then turn it, twist the bottom. And so as you turn it to bring the one that you're going to twist up to the top, that's when it plies those 2 together.
Right.
So
We could put beads on here. I mean, this would be you could put a bead on, slide
yeah.
a bead up and put it in the twist. You could use
So
this to make something else. I have a project, a piece of jewelry I made here in a second. I'll show you.
So Emily, when you're twisting away from you with those strands and then towards you the opposite direction, right?
Yep. But look how it's just so cool looking.
It really is.
right? So the yard and a half that I suggest to start with just gives you enough that you'll make something that'll slip over your head or almost anyone's head.
Mhm.
Typically, over the head length, it needs to be 24 to 27 inches finished. So as you do this twist, you lose some length, about a quarter of the length overall, roughly, about 25%. And that's kind of a rough estimate. It might be less if you do a lighter twist, right? Because you're not using up quite so much.
Mhm.
But I think that this is like the coolest look
I like that twist.
for something that you already have. Um, I mean, I don't know. I can't find a downside to this,
No, I think it's very clever.
right? So I go ahead and do the whole thing, and you'll be like, okay, I've learned how to do this now. By the time you get to the end, you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm done twisting. If you have to take a break, take a break. It can be a little. I noticed the first couple times I did it, which of course I overdid it because one does what one does. Um, that my hand got a little tired. So towards the end, right? But I'm gonna go until I can't go anymore, and then I'm gonna knot it together. So this does make kind of a big knot here, and with the wax linen, we probably don't have to tie a knot, but it's gonna be what's gonna hold the necklace together. So I think
Mhm.
a knot is appropriate at the end here. If we were gonna do like a cord end on here or something, we might be able to get away without the knot. But I would tie a knot with these because we're gonna use this to support the pendant. And give it a good tug so that it's pretty tight. Here's another little trick. Take your chain nose pliers. We're going to put this cord in the lining, right? It's going to go in the back. It's kind of a big bump. So I'm going to just take my chain nose pliers and I'm just going to flatten the knot a little bit,
Oh, that's clever.
right? So now it's just in thickness of cord. And it flattens pretty easily. I'm not having to put a lot of effort into this. It's pretty modest. But now that knot is nice and flat, right? And right. So with these and the back side of my pendant, I found it easiest, and I would cut a brand new thread for this. I'm not going to at this moment because this is live. I'm going to go ahead and take my same needle and same thread, end to the eye, end of the thread to the eye of the needle, pull it through. And I like to orient my cords in about the top quarter or so of the pendant. So it's kind of the same way I would do it with a pin back. Um, you know, if we have a pin back, I don't have a pin back here to show you. If I have a pin back that's going horizontally, I don't want the pin to flop forward, right? I want it to stay up pretty tight. So I'm going to orient that pin back in about the top quarter or third of that pendant. If you
Right,
have a
so it
pin
doesn't
at
flop
home,
forward.
yeah, if you have a pin at home, look at how it's oriented and you'll go, "Oh, I get it. Needs to be near the top." Obviously, right at the top is maybe too high, but I want to be somewhere in that top quarter to third size, right? So I'm going to take a little stitch with my needle. Now the back side of this is going to be visible. So I'm going to make that stitch as small as possible on all the stitching that I do from at this point. And I'm going to lay that cord in here and I'm going to stitch over it, right? And I'm going to do maybe a couple stitches over it. And then I'm going to stitch through the knot. And that gives me the feeling that this is super secure and that I'm not going to lose that pendant somehow. The knot's not going to pull out, right? So I just took a little stitch right through the knot itself. And I might do three or four stitches here just to make everybody feel secure. By everybody, I mean me. Sorry, the imperial we. And
That's
so,
right.
right, you can just barely see this knot right here. And when I finish it, I'll tie it off and do the other side. And then I'm ready to layer these guys together and add the backing, do my any extra little bit of trimming and do my backing or my sorry, my border stitch to get that all the way around, right? So you can do a whip stitch with beads if you like. You can do the Pico edge, which is kind of my favorite. It's a place to add another color if you like. And then this is a little token ready to give away. When you get around, I tend to start my backing kind of in the middle top, work my way around. When you get up to that next corner, remember to put your intention in because it's a pain in the neck if you've forgotten. And you have to go back. Ask me how I know.
Ask you how you know.
How do
Exactly.
I know that it's a pain when you are just about done and you go, oh, shoot. Except you don't say shoot, but no one's there but the dogs, and they won't tell if you say shit. So anyway, that's how I made these little guys, and I think they're really charming and really fun. Pick a design that you like and something that has some personal meaning for you. Write a little intention on a piece of note paper. You can have that with you while you're working if you want, and it'll help you kind of stitch that intention into this work. And then you get to give it away, and you can tell them if you want that there's an intention in there, or you don't have to tell them. It can be your secret, which I sort of like that idea actually.
I love it. Like, what's that movie? That new movie? So not that movie. The Thread, Perfect Thread, or
Oh, I don't know.
it was the one with what's his
Oh,
name? With Daniel Day Lewis.
yeah. It isn't it just called Thread? Is it called Thread?
Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread, and he
Yeah,
stitches little intentions in people's clothing, which is
yeah.
kind of cool.
Well, and
Um,
I think it's a cool thing you can do. You can sew someone's initials on the back. You could put a date in there that you think is important. There's that 1 million things you could say and put intentionally inside these
you
pieces.
could
I am horrified that I've made all these other ones and not putting any intentions in them.
intentions in. I have a couple of questions for you, Em.
You could even write
Um,
your intention on this.
oh yeah, that's a good idea. There was a
Mhm.
question about before I get to this one. Let me get if, for instance, if your piece gets wet, is it going to hurt the paper? I mean, the paper's in between the two pieces, so the paper probably would just drop. I mean, you don't want to get these things wet, but
I would
um,
probably avoid getting them wet if you could.
mhm.
If you feel like this is a piece, and I meet people like this every day. Every time I set up my booth, they were like, I never want to take my jewelry off, and I
Mhm.
think, oh, this it puts a lot of extra stress and strain on things that you never take off. I get it. I get that there's some sentimental personal value to you that you need to keep close to you, but I would take a break with it and take it off and
Mhm.
refresh yourself when you put it back on. If
Mhm.
you felt like this was something that had the potential to get wet, you could use a non-fusible interfacing from the
Mhm.
fabric store for this.
Mhm.
Fusible interfacings do have sometimes a little bit of thread to them, so you may want to cut it a little smaller so that it's really all the thread is inside your seam that you do when you close it all the way up. Um, Ultra Suede doesn't it's not going to hurt the Ultra Suede, but the paper will get funky.
Yeah.
So
The are there any Terry says are there any true rules to bead embroidery or can you just hide your crimes by covering the back once you're done?
hide your crimes while covering when you're done.
Yeah. 100%.
No true rules. I think there are things that maybe might work better than others,
Mhm.
and sometimes that's a personal thing, and sometimes that's a truism for sure.
Mhm.
Um, Robin Atkins. I'm trying to remember that other bead worker who does a lot of bead embroidery. She does really large neck
Terry
pieces.
Serafini.
Sherry Serafini. For some reason, I wanted to say Heidi Klum, but I kind of think she looks a little bit like Heidi Klum, and maybe that was the thing I was getting. But Sherry Serafini also does this, and I think they both use like lacy stiff stuff
Yeah, they
or
use laces, I think. Yeah.
any of those other interfacings. I just find them very heavy, and
Mhm.
it's just not my style. I
Yeah.
love paper trick, and I feel like it. I don't put stuffing in it, Deborah, but you could. You know, my original little heart, and I wish I could tell you what this feels like exactly, but I got to tell you, it almost feels like there's something inside right here. There's a little lumpiness, right? Like just like mine. It's got a little lumpiness kind of in the same spot. And I'm quite sure if I were to open this up, I would find like a piece of cereal box or something inside of it. Like
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
it's not I think whatever stuffing is in there, it's very modest. I think it might be a couple layers of fabric. I think you could stuff them if you felt like it. And it wouldn't take very much, you know, a tiny little bit of fiber fill would do the job.
Mhm.
Torn up paper cotton ball would do the
Yeah,
job.
cotton ball, yeah, would
You
do it
know,
too.
any of those things would absolutely do it. This, like I said, this little inspiration piece. I mean, it's very primitive, and one of the things that I think when I first started making these other hearts was I think I was a little bit frustrated by the size. I think I really liked the charmingness of this tiny heart, which I don't know. It's not as much room to embroider on. It's not as much canvas, but maybe that's part of the intention is that you use a small space to say a lot.
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, I keep thinking of Katharine Hepburn. You know, say what you think, even if your voice shakes.
That's right.
So having a small amount doesn't mean you're saying less. It just means you're being more intentional. Oh, bringing it back.
Yes,
Being a
distilling
little
it down. What
more
are
intentional.
your go-to beads? Leslie's asking what beads are best to use. I think you can use just about anything,
Oh,
but what are
the
some of
world's
your
your oyster.
go-to? Um,
The world is absolutely your oyster. I think
mhm,
it's lovely to have a little variety of size. So 11s, 8s. I probably don't use as many 8s. I probably use more 11s and 6s
mhm.
because it gives a little bit more dimension and a little bit more. Um, I said I don't use very many 8s, and look at this piece; it's covered in 8s.
Right,
Um,
but
it gives you a little bit more scale version that you can play around with a little bit. You know, if you feel like you want to have increasing and decreasing, having a little wider range of sizes, I think is a really great thing. I don't think those are Padres, but those are the what are those called, Kate? Baroque
which ones?
pearls.
Oh,
I
the
think
Miyuki pearl. Yeah, the
Baroque
Miyuki
pearl.
pearl.
Those are awesome. I mean, they have a really subtle texture and color to them. But you can, use 6, 8s, 11s, 15s, delicas. I probably don't use very many delicas. I've used bugle beads in the past. Uh, you can use metal spacers if you want. If you have keshi pearls or flat pearls, here's a here's a flat pearl. I just happened to be working with these a little while ago. Here's a flat pearl that has a hole through the flat section. So you could absolutely use that on a bead embroidery. Buttons, little mother of pearl or faux mother of pearl buttons are a great
Mhm.
thing to add on. I mean, that would be super cute with this whole thing covered in buttons. It would be really, really charming.
I have something. Can I show you? This is one
Please.
I showed it before. Whoops! I just dropped something here. Hang on. A little bit of a catastrophic drop. There we go. I'm fine. I'm going to put us back on the
Hmm,
screen here.
please do.
This is backwards.
Oh,
This is one, I think that someone sent this to me for my birthday.
hmm,
One of you out there embroidered this. The
so
initials
cute.
on the back are DAR 2020. But see here, look at how with the little buttons right here, how they're stitched. When
Kate,
they're stitched,
I'm gonna see if I can grab something. Can you hold on for 1 second? Keep talking.
sure. See how these little buttons are stitched, and there's some Charlottes or 15s or something there that's on the stitch that holds the button onto the back. This is a feather stitch right here. This is a feather stitch. This is like this might have been a back stitch here with these bugles and the 15s. This is like with the little pearl, like Emily was showing. And you can see here, it's just couched around the pearl there. So there's lots of ways, if you do like a little, this is just a cute little crazy quilted or quilted piece here. And then you can see on the sides here, like Emily was saying, the Pico, the Pico is done, this is done with 8/0, I believe. I just love, I have it just sitting here, and it always inspires me. I love it. So thank you for sending
I
that in.
wanted to show you something I
I'll put
made.
you back, your camera. You
Okay,
want the down camera or the face
sure.
camera?
No, the down camera is good.
Okay.
I'm actually gonna move this out of the way because I'm gonna make a
Okay.
still in a second with those loose beads.
Yeah.
They're gonna get away
Same.
from me. So when I first took a class with Robin Atkins, I started this piece actually, and
Oh, holy mother of beadwork. That's beautiful, Em.
it was kind of a lot of symbology for me,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of pieces that I had this wonderful enameled blue
Look
running
at
horse,
that.
which, gosh, my aunts gave me that when I was about 11 or so,
Wow.
and I've had it all these years, and it used to be on a cord, and this was something that I really played around with a lot, and I came back to, and I kind of carried it around and did work in different places. And this was all kind of my ocean and river theme. And I found a really beautiful malachite and lapis fish totem here. And I had an orchard and some fields, and just, you know, um, there's a hill I used to look at when I was a little kid that had just one tree in it. It was kind of a ways away from our house, but across the lake, and it was golden and just had this one big oak tree on it. And so it was, it was a lot of things that I was really thinking about, and so it was a very personal piece. And I put my name on it and the date, '02, so 2002, and then I made a bag
Emily,
for it.
gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
And I made a background on the back that's woven torn fabric strips and bamboo handles, and you can open it up, put stuff inside, carry it. I've carried it a few times, but this was something that I really, really enjoyed. And we were talking about doing bigger pieces. So if you look inside here, you can actually see all the paper that's underneath, right?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, some little metal clay hearts that are
And
terribly tarnished.
that's on a woven batik. Is that right, Em?
Yeah, it's just on a piece of quilting batik
Mm-hmm.
cotton, quilting cotton. Yeah. I would have should have picked out something a little heavier, but at the time this was what I was what I chose. So
And I also love that checkerboard pattern. Are those yellows that you did in the checkerboard, are those two different colors, or is it the way of the beads that's making them read a different color?
it's two different colors. There's a greasy
Okay.
yellow and
I see. I see.
yeah.
Gotcha. But just slight. It's
Yeah,
nice.
they're kind of tone on tone. I mean,
Mhm.
the greasy ones
Beautiful.
are slightly transparent, so they pick up a
Mhm.
little bit of the color of the fabric underneath.
Mhm.
So
Now that, kind of little tree-like thing,
yeah,
is
that's a little
is
vintage
that
bead.
a vintage bead? And the top of that, is that stay stitch right
Yep.
there?
But fringy.
Fringe.
So
Mhm.
like it is stay stitch. It's six beads looks like.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it makes that nice little fringe for the tree. That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love the use that you've done on there, Emily. The tone on tone really
Mhm.
is arresting there. And even with that, when you have the rhinestone pieces or the Swarovski crystal pieces,
Yeah.
tone on tone, I think is
It's very powerful.
really very with bead embroidery, very much
Yeah.
so.
I mean, there's three colors in this one,
Yeah.
right? There's the 15 and two 11s.
Oh, it's delightful. And Emily, what are those little they look are they squares? What are those?
These
Yeah.
these are sixes with stripes, mats with stripes,
Oh, gotcha.
and then there's some cubes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
these are
Oh,
these are actually copper bugle beads.
mhm. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
that what I love about that, where you did the stripes and the cubes, you can see the edges of those cubes that
Mhm.
really stand out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really great. And again, this has a lot of intention stitched into it,
Mhm.
but it's not overly planned or too precious, being too precious about it. It's gorgeous, Emily.
Thank you. I haven't looked at this one in a minute, so it was fun to get it out.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
really, everyone is inspired, including me.
Oh, good.
Love, love, love. Well, let's,
Melanie, I see your notice about Patience of a Saint. This is
yeah.
this is years of work, probably a couple of years.
Mhm.
So I get inspired, do a bunch, put it aside, come back to it. Get inspired, do a
Mhm.
bunch, put it aside, come back to it. So it takes some time, but it's I don't know. I really enjoyed it a lot. And
Yeah, it's really gorgeous. Em, would you do a little display of all the little pieces? So if people want to do a
sure,
screenshot, we've got a nice little group.
sure. Let me
Um,
put it back.
Terry has a good comment here. She said, "Could we make the bead embroidered heart and leave the top open to add the talisman as needed rather than close it?"
I don't
Sure.
see why not.
Yeah, make it like a little pocket
You
and
know, back in the day, Kate will laugh at me because I bring up amulet bags about every 3 weeks.
good
Back in
old
the
amulet
day, there
bags.
was a project that one would do as one was learning how to do peyote stitch, which was an amulet bag. So a little bag that was meant to be worn around the neck with an open top, sometimes the flap or a little slider
Mhm.
to close it. And you were meant to carry something in that amulet bag. And careful, I don't hop up and find an amulet bag here.
Emily, can you push that up just a little? The hand is a little off. Yeah, perfect. Emily, maybe we should, or you should, single-handedly bring back the amulet bag because,
No.
oh, sorry, someone's calling me and it's not you and it's not Janice, so I don't want to talk to him. But doing this, maybe an updated version.
If I was going to do an amulet bag today, I it might be very easy to just do a bead embroidered one.
Yeah,
Do two
yeah,
panels and back to back, and do a fun lining on the inside,
yeah,
and a really nice cord that goes along the edges. And
yeah,
because those peyote ones are, you know,
yeah.
it's a lot of work.
So Terry's saying nothing wrong with an amulet bag for a gemstone, for a bad day, for a wish, for a small
Yeah,
frog.
indeed,
I'm
for
in.
a rock. I mean,
I
yeah,
know, right?
I
I
don't.
think
I have no problem with an amulet bag. I would bring an
no.
amulet
Let's
bag
do it.
on
Let's
any
do
old
it.
time. Oh, here's another bead embroidered pin that I found
Oh, look at that one.
while I was getting that bag out.
Look at
This
that
was a study
cabochon.
between the ones I showed off before.
Oh, are those
Yeah.
freshwater pearls along the right?
No, those are nail heads.
Oh, nail heads. Oh, I love you, nail heads.
So a
Oh,
nail head is a flat bead that was meant to be sewn onto a garment, and it looks like it's been hammered down facets.
mhm.
So it looks like the top of a nail.
Yeah, they're
Um,
so good.
these are jet with a rainbow AB on them or something.
And
Uh,
look at that labradorite.
yeah, that labradorite carved uh,
Yeah,
cap.
it's delicious. That's gorgeous.
Well,
Well, Emily Miller, last looks, everybody, on that. If you want to screenshot it now.
here comes the sun.
Here comes the sun, just like this. And I will add us all in. Let me see if I can work that out. There we go. So gorgeous.
Excuse me.
Emily, I I am so into it.
I
So
I I'll never give up bead embroidery. It's
no.
definitely in my repertoire of things that I really like to do.
I love it.
And the Ultra Suede makes it very easy and kind of clean to work with.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it tearing or messing up a thread in the fabric itself. Um, and certainly any of these pieces could be pins or necklaces, pins or pendants.
Yeah, you could
We have
even
the
do
we
a
have the pin backs, which are super inexpensive and a great
yeah,
thing to kind of
you could
have,
do a
on hand in case you want to make a pin suddenly.
or
And
a
of course,
hair, some kind of hair ornament.
yeah, they could. There's I don't know what to call these hair clips, but they pop back and forth.
Oh, yeah, those ones I use them also in quilting. If I'm holding on a binding,
Right.
I'll pop them
They
down.
they're
Yeah,
they're but they come in different sizes,
yeah.
and they have holes at each end of the pop back and forth part.
Right, right, right.
And so you could stitch to that, have it go inside and stitch to that, and then the outside part would be the little clip that would go in your hair for sure. You know,
It'd be
um,
fun.
you might also be able to do it on a barrette finding. You know,
Mhm.
those kind, the metal ones that kind of come apart and you can
Yeah,
slide them.
Those French barrettes.
That's
Yeah,
that's the one, Kate.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Those would look
So
great, it'd just be
true,
an option, for making for sure.
for sure. Well, Em, I will see you in person in just a couple of weeks.
I know.
We're gonna be in Tucson. It's gonna
Less
be
than 2
great.
weeks now. Less than 2
What's
weeks.
that? Less
It's
than 2
less than
weeks.
2 weeks. It was 2 weeks Monday.
I know. Countdown, countdown, countdown.
Oh my god.
Um, you're gonna be back soon. What's the next I should pull up the calendar. Uh, you've got something coming up next, don't you?
I do. I have something in my hands. We're gonna do,
Let
brick
me
stitch
just
bracelet.
hold the hold on.
Haven't you've seen these?
Nay. I don't know, maybe I have, I just don't remember. They're
So it's really
beautiful.
funny when I was working on the handout for this, if you go back to the very first
Oh my
broadcast I
god,
did
those
with
are
Grace,
beautiful.
this one is actually peeking out, or I might show it. This was the beginning of this. I've wanted to make bangle bracelets for years,
Right,
and
you
I've
have,
tried
that's
different
right.
ones, and never came up with a pattern or a style that I really loved. And I was playing around with brick stitch, and I thought, brick stitch doesn't fold on itself very easily this way, right? It kind of holds its shape flat. And so it made me make these bracelets.
So those are bangles. They
Yeah.
have no
No class.
clasp. They are brick stitch bangles. I cannot stand it. Those are gorgeous.
They are really fun. And Jana suggested that I do it in a, sorry, I'm just getting this one off here, in a triple, so that you can wear them all together. But you could wear them separately too.
Yeah,
Um,
those are gorge.
Yeah, I think they're really kind of fun. This is
Oh,
called
how
Four
fun.
Corners, so you can make a
Mhm.
narrow one, a little wider one, or a really wide one.
So we'll see those in February, right,
Yep.
Em?
Yep. This was my original one
Fan-fucking-tastic.
that I made myself.
I
A
love it,
little bit
love
different
it.
color combo, but it's very comfortable to wear. I mean, they don't. I'm taking it off screen. You don't feel it. And it rotates around because it has no clasp. You don't have to worry about the clasp.
No, it looks great. I wanna stitch a tiny little piece of leather on there.
You could.
I
Um,
don't know. I'm just
you can.
thinking,
So,
you know
so
me, I have
here's
leather
the
on
other thing.
frame.
This is fabric of
Yeah,
beads. And this is what I think of seed bead work mostly, is that what we're making is we're making fabric. So there's no reason that you couldn't stitch through this the way you would fabric
yeah.
and have embellishments on the top. I would actually stitch through it just slightly differently than I would do in bead embroidery by using the holes of the beads as the
Mhm,
pass through part.
mhm.
So if I wanted to, let me grab another one of those Keshi pearls because they're just sitting over here looking fat and sassy. If I wanted to
Oh,
embellish this with a pearl on top of it, my thread would go through some beads, up the pearl, have another little bead, down the pearl, and back through the beads again. Does that make sense?
it certainly does.
Mhm.
I love
So we could
this
do
so
embellishment
much.
all around on these with whatever. I mean, obviously, a flat bead is probably functionally a little smarter,
Mhm,
um, but we could do dangles that hung from this and moved
mhm.
around. We could do. You could take a. How do I not have a scrap of leather here? But I just don't seem not to. You could take a little scrap of leather and tie it around, tie a knot there, and have a bead.
Yeah,
You
and
know, a
have a
little,
little bead or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
All the
Oh,
yeah,
so
all of
good.
those things. But
Well,
wait
thanks
till
for that
you
little
see.
preview, Em.
I'm working on a new one because I love this turquoise bead so much.
Oh, look, it's like the earrings I'm wearing today.
Yeah.
They were your
Yeah.
oh,
Look how
the
pretty
one
that
that
looks
you did.
together. Doesn't it look like inlay? Yeah.
Yes.
Inlay in Native American jewelry making and just jewelry making in general means that there's a layer of stones that are usually cut in different pieces, and then they're in a bezel and they're sanded flat or flush with the top of that bezel.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
this to me is picking up inlay vibes.
It's very inlay vibes. I love what Margaret is saying. Same, hashtag same, Margaret. She says, okay, now I need to lie on the floor and eat cheese and absorb all of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go eat some cheese and do the same.
Yeah. I actually have a little bit of brie left over, but I just finished some blue cheese that I've been eating in my salads every night with pears, and I'm
Nice.
gonna have to go back to the store because I finished the salad. I finished the blue cheese off last night.
Yeah, we cannot for one moment be without cheese. Emily, thank you so much for that sneak peek.
Sure. Happy to do it.
Um, so many people are
Because
saying that
these guys together, these are gonna
yeah,
be hot, hot, hot worn
hot,
together.
hot, hot, gorge. Yeah.
Oh, I can see enough.
Carolyn saying you're hitting it out of the park as always.
I need to get the I need to get some more 190s. So this is the this is the size 11 190 seed bead, which is the nickel plated.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my favorite bead.
Mm-hmm.
Followed closely by the bronze, the 454.
Mm-hmm.
But that nickel plated, I could use it in everything.
It is true. I love this little after party that we did. I think people were kind of ready, and then people are all, but we pull them back in. Um,
You
so
thought you were going to get off easy early today.
no,
You're wrong.
no, you're wrong. So, friends, not only did we have the wonderful Emily as a special guest today, as always, uh, we're having a new special guest on Friday. Our
Very
buddy
cool.
Michelle Phipps, who she's going to do a tour of her, we're calling it the Kumahimo Gallery. And then she's going to start next month, I believe, teaching us some of her really great Kumahimo tricks. So on Friday, my friends, you folks will all meet Michelle, and that'll be super fun. I love these guest days because I can just watch like all of you out there and get super inspired. I love it so much. So, Emily, thank you for everything as always. I can't wait for the brick stitch bangles. I love this. Mary Ellen Siegel is saying, we too are the greatest of all time. Thank you so much. I love it. I love it. Michelle, we cannot wait to see you on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Emily and I will pop in. You'll see Emily again probably sometime during Tucson when we're either cold and shivering or hot and sweaty. Who knows what it's going to be like?
Oh my God, I'm already anticipating having to like shiver from the car into a tent and then go, oh my God, I have to take every stitch off because it's like I'm 85 degrees in here.
That's right. Find a vendor that we know so we can shove all our stuff under the table.
Jerry.
So we'll be back. Can we just put all this stuff underneath? Yeah, so awesome.
Do I take
so
a rolling suitcase to carry with me? Do I just do a tote bag? So many choices.
So many choices and comfortable shoes. I'll tell you. All right, my friend. I will talk to yes, and no spray. I will talk to you very, very soon. Thank you so much for all of this inspiration. And as always, friends, you can find all of the info. Where's my slide? There it is. All the information on the projects and the products from today's broadcast right over on beadshop.com. Any questions, email us, shoot us an email at info@beadshop.com. And of course, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. Thank you again. I will talk to you soon. I will talk to all of you Friday with Michelle. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.